Hey, this is Nikki G and welcome to Better Commander. Today we're talking about a guy who's only a little bit taller than me, Cadric, Soul Kindler. Can we talk about this guy? Can we talk? Dominaria United is giving us some really sweet build-arounds, and I like the restriction of Boros colors and the legends therein. I like dwarves. This guy looks like Torbjorn from Overwatch. Come get your armor. Oh man, I have a lot of thoughts after playing around with this guy, but first, consider subscribing to my channel, leave a comment, smooch the like button, and if you're feeling particularly generous today, buy me a coffee at the link in the description. Caffeine is pretty much all I need to keep popping off about Magic the Gathering. So after mocking this up and playtesting it a bit, I can say that Cadric's ability is fairly strong. Let's take a look at the card. So this guy is 2 red and a white. For a legendary creature, he's a Dwarf Wizard, 4/3. The legend rule doesn't apply to tokens you control. Whenever another non-token legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do create a token that's a copy of it, the token gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. This guy, he's a Dwarf Wizard. He's up on the rocks, he's training some dragons. I like the lore, I like the art, I like the whole thing. So you're definitely going to want some mana acceleration so you can get Cadric out early. Arcane Signet, Talisman of Conviction. This deck is fairly mana hungry as you're adding 1 additional mana to every legendary spell you cast. So about 10 2-mana sources is probably pretty good for this deck. You want to know what else you can mitigate this cost with? Birdie, God of Storytelling. 2 and a red for a legendary creature, it's a god. Whenever you cast a spell, add red. Until the end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. Creatures you control can boast twice during each of your turns, blah blah blah. So this is a cast trigger, so you'll add the mana before Cadric's trigger goes on the stack. So many ways to build this guy. I experimented with Legendary Angel Tribal. There's about 30 in these colors and some really notable beaters that we want to probably stick in the deck. You got Lulu here, 3 and a white for a legendary creature. Elephant Angel, it's a 3/2 with flying. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each tapped creature you control, then untap them. Lulu's ability and Cadric trigger at the same time at the beginning of the end step, so we can order them such that Cadric's sacrifice trigger resolves before Lulu's, thereby untapping and beginning our creatures. Okay. And looking at some of the other legendary angels, we want to look for angels that have a weapon in each hand. You got Gisela, Blade of Gold Knight, Aurelia, the War Leader. These are beautiful combat monsters that can plop down, get copied, and smash face from the sky. I also took a look at all the legendary dragons in these colors, and there are 2 from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty that are really powerful when copied. Ao, the Dawn Sky, and Atsushi, the Blazing Sky, have some sweet death triggers that we can get immediate value on when they get sacrificed at the beginning of our end step. I think Atali Primal Storm is a no-brainer in this deck. The token's going to get haste, along with Hope of Girapur, so we can really mess up our opponents. And we also want to control the board, so Mangara of Karandor is a great thing to copy and give haste to. This guy's just out there in the desert with a stick, and he's going to pull you into the Shadow Realm, brother. And topping out the curve, you got Elish Norn, so if we can copy this guy, all our opponents are getting -4/-4. This is somebody I'd like to sit across the table from at a nice restaurant. Alright, now we're getting to the meat and potatoes, brother. So, we're copying legendary creatures, and the legend rule doesn't apply to token copies, so we want to lean into that. We got Delina, Wild Mage. She triggers when she attacks. Okay, then we have Duke Ulza of Ravengard. So this thing triggers at the beginning of a combat and gives a creature haste, which is awesome. Since the legend rule does not apply, we can attack with all of our legendary copies and get any ETB and or death triggers, dude. I did a budget deck tech on this guy, and let me tell you, it slaps. Rionia, she's about to dance up on ya, so she triggers at the beginning of combat. Once we're making copies, this can get out of hand very quickly. If we have 2 Rionias from our Cadric's Enter the Battlefield trigger, that's 2 copies of another legend or just copies of the copy. That's Boros value, dude. That's Boros value, brother. So our Commander and Delina and Rionia, these are wizards or shaman. So my sweet, beautiful Harmonic Prodigy can double all these triggered abilities for additional copies. I love this card. I own a bunch of them and I think it's a really underrated card. And Determined Iteration is a really efficient enchantment that can help copy all this crazy stuff we've made tokens of. Speaking of which, Populate in general is pretty good in the deck and you might want to consider it for your builds. And as always, you want to draw cards. Idol of Oblivion is great for that, and Skull Clamp is always a rockin' card. Give them the clamps. Ellen Harbury's Busybody. So this is 3 and a white for a legendary creature. It's a human peasant, 2/4. Has tap. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of tokens you've created this turn. Put one of those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Listen, my buddies were all excited when I pulled an ancient gold dragon, but I just wanted more of that Busybody. As distasteful as Planeswalkers are to old school Magic purists like myself, they're very powerful card types. And guess what, dude? They're legendary permanents. There are also a bunch of these colors that can make themselves into creatures, and this leads to some interesting interactions. We have Sarkhan the Masterless and Sarkhan the Dragon Speaker. These guys are great Planeswalkers to copy with Cadric. If we activate them to make them creatures, we can copy them with Delina and or Rionia or one of our crazy copy effects. Alright, so then we attack, do whatever we're going to do, and if they survive, we can activate a loyalty ability second main phase. From Sarkhan the Masterless Rulings, once Sarkhan's first loyalty ability has resolved, each Planeswalker you control, including Sarkhan, is no longer a Planeswalker for the rest of the turn. They don't lose any loyalty counters or abilities, and you can still activate their loyalty abilities if you haven't done so yet this turn. They don't lose loyalty if they're dealt damage while they're not Planeswalkers. There are also several Gideon Planeswalkers that also have the ability to become creatures. So I kind of went with the Planeswalker Sub-theme for my build. Do whatever makes you happy. But we also have Luca. This guy's the Coppercoat Outcast. He has an interesting -2 ability. So it's exile target creature you control, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card with higher mana value. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So since Cadric's trigger doesn't go on the stack until the beginning of the end step, we can take one of our copies and turn it into a real creature. Then we can copy that too if we want with Cadric, because his second ability is an ETB. Whoa buddy, we're deep into the Legendception with Leonardo DiCaprio, the sequel too. You also may want to include some sacrifice outlets like Goblin Bombardment, that card's great, and Bryon Stoutarm, the guy's also great. May as well put those bodies to use prior to them being sacrificed at the beginning of the end step, brother. So I put together a deck list. It's got a healthy mix of impactful creatures and planeswalkers to give you an idea of what a sweet Cadric deck can look like with a reasonable budget. It's like $200 some odd. If you decide to build this guy, have no mercy. Non-legendary copies of legendary creatures is an immensely powerful strategy. So let me know what you'd stake in this deck, and enjoy your life. You only get one life. Thanks for watching. This is Nicky G from Better Commander, signing off.